So today in our video we want to talk about fear of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So fear of intimacy is actually a really important topic that doesn't get discussed as much as it's needed. And we want to talk about what it is, how to have signs. We're going to give you 8 signs of whether you have certain fear of intimacy, and also talk about what you can do around that.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Ready?
Okay.
So let's jump in.
Yes. Well, first of all, you don't have to be scared of it. Fear of intimacy is something that we all have in different level, and some of us experience it more intensely than others. And we do want to invite some exploration, so you can be open and honest with yourself if you do have it or not, because in case you do have it, and again, we all have it, it'd be good to know in to what degree you have it, and then to understand what to do about it, how you can change it, and maybe a little bit where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why all of us have it to some degree, because intimacy is always ambivalent, because with our romantic partners, and it's also true about close people in your life in general, but of course it becomes stronger with our romantic partner. This is where in those kind of relationships we feel the most loved and happy and satisfied, right? We know that relationship is really like the number one thing that affects the quality of your life. Yet at the same time, this is where we get the most hurt, right? Who hurts us the most? Those are the, if we get hurt by someone who's close to us, it hurts way deeper than someone who's a stranger, right? So all of us carry some hurt from past relationship, and that's why we become ambivalent, and that's why we like to say that everybody has some form of fear of intimacy, right? So it's normal to have it. Of course, it depends on how much. Okay. And what fear of intimacy actually means, it means that you have some hesitation, some fear of being really close to someone. It's not easy for you to come in and say like, here I am, and I'm fully 100% available to giving love and receiving love with you. Right? And something, part of you really wants that, of course, but on the other side, there's some part of you who's a little afraid of it and hesitant and try to get away from that.
Can I complicate it a little bit?
Of course, okay, if it's necessary.
For some people, they do think they're vulnerable with their partners. They do believe that they share their emotions. But let me give you an example. For many couples that I work with, that I'm asking one person, okay, so what do you feel right now? And the answer can be like, that they didn't do the dishes and they're wrong. Well, that's not really feelings, right? It's more about what the other person did or didn't do, but there is nothing about that it's actually feelings. So people tend to confuse actions with feelings. And we want to create a distinction here, because if you tend to just focus on other things, not necessarily the feelings, and not be aware of it, that's also a problem by itself, that we want to call you on that and just say, hey, it's not really feelings, and what will happen if you really try to understand what's happening inside you, what's happening in your body, what do you sense right now? And it can be like, I know I'm frustrated. Okay, that's already better. Oh, I'm angry. Oh, here we go, that's feelings. So that's where we want to go, into a place which we can really share the emotions and the feelings of what's happening to us. And there are ways to do it, but that's not this talk. Yeah.
So Liron actually started with like one of the first signs. So one of the things we wrote down for you is 8 signs that potentially you have kind of more challenge time with intimacy. So your fear of intimacy might be getting in the way, right? And number 1 that we wrote is it's very hard for you to share your feelings or your emotions, or to share what's going on for you. When your partner asks you something, either it's not easy for you to recognize it, or it's very hard for you to share this with them. You kind of get stuck there, right? And so that's one sign that there's a challenge for you around intimacy. Another sign that is very common one actually is that you find yourself falling in love or getting attracted to the wrong people, or to people that are not really available for relationship.
How I always, get attracted or having boyfriend that's not available for me.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's
yeah.
a very
How
common
many times
complaint.
we heard that in our practice?
Yes.
People calling just like, I don't know, somehow picking up the same personality or the same character they're not available. They never want to talk about themselves, or it seems like they are in the beginning and they're actually not.
They say they want a relationship, but then they don't, and they disappear, and they're they're not available or they don't want to commit, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of looking at them, you can ask yourself, maybe I'm choosing them in an unconscious way because I'm actually afraid of being closer. And when I find someone who's unavailable, then it actually relieves me of the need to feel really close to someone.
Keep me safe.
Like they do their job for
Right.
me, basically.
Yeah. Or almost like we need them to protect ourselves from exposure.
Another sign that you might have fear of intimacy is that you're so afraid of being rejected that you don't really try. Like sometimes people feel like, oh, I've been hurt so many times, or I don't really trust relationship, and so then I don't even try, right? And so then you give up on the possibility of actually being close to someone or having a romantic partner because you're so afraid of being rejected.
Yeah.
So that's another signal.
Yeah. Another sign can be is that you're basically rejecting yourself from your partner or from emotional situations in general. Oh, I don't really like birthday parties, or I don't really like to go to restaurants with another couple. It's just, I prefer to just go with my partner. There is something about that level of intimacy that it's a little bit threatening or uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So you choose not to do it, and that's another sign for like, oh, it's a little bit difficult to be in intimacy.
Mm-hmm. And many times also people tell themselves, I'm just a very independent person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm self-sufficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's really happening is that some aspects of the intimacy is challenging for them, and so they rather create more distance from other people than actually be in those situations.
Yeah.
Another form of fear of intimacy is that, which is actually true for all of us, but depends on how strong, is that you have a certain image. Like you try to present yourself in a very particular way to people. Like you feel like I'm only going to be liked if I'm perfect. Or I'm only going to be liked if I'm nice to people and always helping them. Right?
And smiling.
Or smiling for
happy.
them. Or always like the guy who has the jokes and is a funny
Right.
guy, right? And so all of us has some aspect of that, right? But the stronger it is, it means that you're actually not showing yourself fully. Right? You're only showing a certain image of yourself, certain part, very limited part of yourself, and not all of who you are. So you don't share all of who you are, which is, again, a fear of intimacy.
Yeah. Another one is some people tend to be flaky. They scheduling things, they want to meet and canceling last minute, or not feeling well somehow. And it's not like it can happen to all of us for sure, but there is some tendency, some repetition with it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not feeling good today again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so there's something there about that.
And that's
closeness.
especially, I want to add, when someone shows interest in you. Like sometimes it happens, especially like you start meeting a new friend and you're actually going well and you like each other, and the friend says, hey, do you want to meet up next week? And then suddenly you don't respond to them so quickly.
Right.
So again, you don't do it always consciously, but unconsciously you're like, okay, well, hold on a second, kind of thing, and you don't respond. Another form is that if you're is asking yourself how much actually relationships in general and romantic relationships in particular, how much time I spend with that during a week. A lot of people bury themselves in work, right?
Or
hobbies, and so
Right.
doing things that are not necessarily especially if it's not with people. Sometimes you can do hobbies with friends and feel very
Right.
close to them. But if you're doing things that are on your own, or you think doing the work, sometimes that's a fear. Like you're avoiding basically relationship, and you telling yourself that those things are vital and important.
Yeah. Right.
And then maybe the last one.
Someone is really interested in you, and you start finding all the things that are not really working for you or you don't like about them. That it's really kind of like, it was great in the beginning, but then, or they really likes you and just like, well, I don't like how they fixing their bike. It's just their style is just not my style.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to avoid them.
And again, this could be very sneaky. Like I worked in the past with someone who was in a relationship and really adored their partner. It was a male with a female partner, but then he, at some points of time in the relationship, he would start looking at everything that looks wrong about her. Like he would see all the small stuff that doesn't look good about her, like the wrinkles and the way she smiles, and like those things that a day before did not bother him, suddenly really bothered him. Right? And so that was an example of like we realized it's like, you know, they got too close for him. And so again, unconsciously something in him says like, oh, starts to find this fault and this criticism of her in order to not be too close.
Or a couple that's, you know, one or the two of them has lots of hobbies, and they basically do a lot of things separately, or even their hobbies are the ones that they're not really communicating with each other. Ride biking,
Bike riding.
bike riding. what do you say?
Ride biking.
So reverse it. Yeah, or other hobbies that's required, you know, separate time. Like one is a mechanic and like to fix the car, so that's what they do all Saturday, and the other person is, exploring, going for hikes and just do things by themselves. And then that means that they are not really used to be in intimacy, in connection, and being vulnerable with each other. Their vulnerability being wrapped with like, oh, I like this hobby and I want to do that hobby, and I'm not including you because that's a hobby that I can do by myself and not with other people. True end, something is missing right there.
So we gave you a lot of signs of like, you know, that you can find in yourself and see like, do I have a certain level of fear of intimacy? And we want to also talk for a moment about why it happens, okay? Why all of us have. So one thing we already said that we get most happy, but also we get the most hurt in a relationship, right? And what happens is that we get, you know, associated in our own brain, right? When we think about love and connection, or when we think about being really open with someone else, or we think about being really intimate with someone else, what comes up for us automatically? What's our gut instinct around that? And if we had been hurt in the past, or if we had family patterns in which people around us, our siblings, our parents, were not available to us or was critical of us, you know, then we got an association inside of our own brain, in our unconscious, of that this could feel painful, this could be difficult, right? And so because of that, we end up avoiding it, or again being ambivalent about that. And so it's really important to understand that there's a source to all of this, that usually it comes, we have certain templates about relationship, and in our workshop, you know, our Breakthrough to Love workshop, we help you find some of those templates. Like, what is your template around relationship? How do you get close to each other? And also, what are you worried about? And we help you identify those things in order for you to be able to create deeper intimacy, deeper connection with your partner.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I want to add that it's important that if you recognize that within yourself, in one of the examples, it's not like you're doing something wrong. Ask yourself, okay, what can I do differently? How can I connect more with my emotions? How can I dare and share more about how I feel? And if you're not sure how you feel, it's okay. Sometimes we just like block that access to how we feel and we disconnected. So explore it. Just check in with yourself, like, oh, okay, when a person says something, I'm numb, or what is under the numbness? What's the sensation of my body? It may be easier to feel some contractions or some stillness or some frozenness or some movement, and you can connect to that and ask yourself, okay, so what's the feeling that may come with that? When I'm contracted, what do I feel? I feel more closed. Oh, okay, I feel more maybe sad, or maybe some frustration or some anger. So start asking yourself, what may be the feelings that you experience under the disconnection?
And if I can organize that for a moment and put it into steps.
Oh, God loves that. He's just looking for those opportunities that he can put things into steps. Yes.
Then step number one, you need to recognize that you have it, right? And one of the things to recognize it is to start paying attention to all the moments in which you actually disconnect from relationship, or from the possibility of being closer with someone. You know? I'll give an example of myself. I recognize in the past that sometimes when people come to visit me, actually people that I'm interested in and I want to be in a relationship with, or friendship with, they come in and they talk, and somehow I recognize that after a while that I start doing things. Like I start cleaning the dishes, or I start doing things, and I'm just like, hold on a second, I can do this later. Why am I doing this right now? Right? So that was an example of me catching myself of like, oh, I'm creating a bit of a distance. I like this person,
less available,
but I'm becoming less available because I'm doing something else. I'm not fully present with them, right? I'm not really giving myself all the way, right? So that's the first step, like recognize it. Second step is find out what's the source of your fear of intimacy. Okay, you can ask yourself this question. Here's the question. Question is, if I get really close to people and share myself fully, I'm afraid that. And let yourself complete that sentence. And really think about it deeply, because that will help you reveal what is the underlying belief that you have that is causing this challenge with intimacy. And then the third thing, once you recognize this, you recognize when you're doing it, and you're recognizing also why you're doing it, what's the fear, then allow yourself to soften around it, to relax your body, just like Liron is saying in those moments, and just try something different and see the result. Right? Try it just for a little bit, just for 5 more seconds, for 30 more seconds, for 1 minute. I'm going to actually, in my example, for example, I'm going to put stuff aside. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be with this person, just really try to be present with them and see what the result is. Right? Because me trying it and seeing that the result is actually positive makes me more motivated to do it and to change the pattern.
I like how you put things into steps. It's just like summarizing everything, just like tick, 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 and your brain can get it.
Right.
Beautiful.
I like to make things simple.
Yes.
Great. So we hope that learning about this made you think about it and made you think about how can I expand my capacity for intimacy. And of course, if you want to jump in further, we really would encourage you to check our website, lovemadesimple.com. And the best thing that we found in order to create more capacity for intimacy and for fun and excitement and passion in your relationship is to join one of our workshops.
Yeah.
You know, in which we help you create a breakthrough in just one weekend of deeper intimacy, deeper connection with each other, and feeling a lot more on the same page.